And that's what we want to think about next, which is, you know, if we were to actually put Columbus on trial, who else would be on trial with him? So we have some handouts here that we could use if we want to form 5 groups, right? We have 5 different, I guess, people that could be accused, 5 different groups that could be accused. So why don't we try to form 5 groups right now? We'll go into those groups. We'll think about the validity of the charges. Are these charges valid? We'll think about the percentage guilt. How guilty were these parties? And then ultimately, those who we find to be the most guilty, or guilty at all, we'll assign a sentence to them. Right? So what should be done? Okay, so why don't we try to
maybe 2 or 3 per? It seems like the numbers that we have. I'll start a group over here.
So there's one.
Hey,
in terms of like what we're doing, I'll repeat it again too. You want to take that worksheet? Okay, yeah.
We know the game.
So if you want to get a couple, you want to join our group? We'll get a group over here. You want to join? So we get a group of 3 over here. You want to take a group? I'll take a group.
I can take a group.
We haven't decided yet.
Okay, I can take a group right here. Somebody wants to come join.
We're doing an activity. So you want to do it with us? We get a group over here.
I've got the Spanish Royals.
Remember.
Let's join together. Hey, you can come join me.
Can we be someone who's a great?
Yeah, I'll do a group with you guys. The System of Empire. Sure, so again, you want to do 3 things. You want to do 3 things in your group. Right, obviously, before you do any of those, read the actual indictment, okay? Read the explanation of the indictment. Second, okay, think about the validity of the charges. So is the group or the people that you're looking at, is it valid that we're charging them, you know, with mass murder, with mistreatment, okay? And then second, right, come up with the percentage guilt, right? So how guilty are they? And then last, give a sentence. So how valid are the charges? What's the percentage of guilt? And what's the sentence? Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then we'll come back together in about maybe 10 minutes or so and discuss what we've come up with. All right, go.
Without their money for Columbus, it's a pirate.
Right? So do you think if they were unaware of what was happening, they would still be guilty? Even if they claimed they didn't know what was happening?
You know what? That whole, I didn't know what was going on this. First act in the lands you discovered was to take possession of another people's territory, being more than by 1,000 miles from home. The very beginning of the conflict, in that night, the more property one owns, the more security. There's no security without private ownership of property. If you were poor, you would starve. The Taínos were not perfect, but they had no quote-unquote poor and no one starved. Indians commented that Europeans' love of gold is like a disease. In fact, this attitude was a product of a diseased system. In order to get more wealth, Columbus and his men took Taínos as slaves, terrorized them into searching out gold, and forced them to work on their farms and in their mines. They justified all this by telling themselves that the Taínos were Christians, so we can control their land and labor. The European system saw only white Christians as full human beings.
It was life in a system that valued private property, especially gold, and approved of violence against foreigners and non-Christians to get it. That made Columbus and his men enslaved and killed. Sane people do not kill hundreds of thousands of other human beings. It was a rotten, insane system that led Columbus and the others to behave the way they did. You, as the representatives of this system, are guilty for the genocide committed against Taínos. As a
final test to see who's guilty for the mass murder of Taínos, ask yourselves this question. If it had been some other explorer besides Columbus to discover America, would he have let the Taínos keep their land? Would he not have enslaved people? Would he not have made them serve for gold and gold mines? You know the answer. Any European conqueror would have been every bit as bad as Columbus. Why? Because the empire was slaves, not any particular.
treatment of the Tainos. Like the Jesuit priests knew that it wasn't correct. So, I mean, I think it is possible for you to stand up against an corrupt system if you know what's right.
Absolutely. Right, Barclay de la Casas was involved in the enslaving, involved in the exploitation, but he took himself out of it, so you're absolutely right. So people can stand up to the system. What else? So, anybody else? I guess, I mean, are those people, like the Jesuit priests, like De La Casas, are they the exception? And that the rule is that the system really is exploitative and it really does oppress people, and it is based on profit for a few people? Or, I mean, I don't know.
I think they are the exception. Like, I feel like it's very difficult when there is a system in place already, that this is like what you're raised to do and that you are kind of introduced to this early on. Like, to some point, like, this is what Columbus was doing, but this is what he did. Like, I don't know whether or not he knew it was wrong all the way, because this was just the system that was in place at the time. So I think these priests were the exception, and that's what it takes actually to overcome the system. But at some point, like, the majority is going to follow, because that's what's in place. It's hard to question what's in place when that's all you know.
What motivated them to be an exception?
Good question. I don't know. Good question. I think it might have had to do, if a lot of them were priests, I think part of it just had to do with, like, if they were blatantly witnessing this, like, violence against people, and, like, at some point, like, a human being, like, you see this much violence, you know something's wrong, especially if you are that tied to your religious faith that says that violence is wrong, like.
Exactly. I mean, Las Casas and the other priests, they were still racist, and they still didn't view the Tainos as, you know, Christians, as you know, as right as a Christian. They needed to be saved and needed to be converted. But at the same time, in the human to human interaction, witnessing the violence, setting dogs on the Tainos or cutting off their ears because they didn't get enough gold, you know, that you can just see that something is wrong. There's something wrong with that. And if you're ordered to do something but you feel wrong and you still do it anyway, you are to blame.
It's also interesting too because they were Jesuits, right? They weren't Catholic, which was the main religion in Spain at that time, I think, right?
Because, yeah,
Well, Jesuit is part of the Catholic order. It's just one of the, yeah, the Catholic order.
Is it different at all though? Like were they completely included in Catholicism?
It's a little different because it's a little more intellectually based, but I mean it is still Catholic order.
Okay.
I just don't want us to let these priests off the hook. Because De La Casa specifically, I mean, his main purpose for writing his piece was not that, oh, this is our belief Islam. It's, you sent me here to do a job to convert, and I can't convert those that are dead. So do me a favor and just tell your boys to chill so I could at least do some converting. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, you're right.
I don't want to let them off the hook because they were also very selfish in their own motivation. So.
And at the same time, I mean, he was also involved in the process, right, of colonization.
Yeah,
and all the violence and exploitation that went behind that. In a sense, he writes his own book, right? You know, what did Churchill say once? I'm going to write, I'm going to be remembered well because I'm going to write history. I mean, De La Casas gets to sort of absolve himself in his own book. You know, and say, oh, those guys were really terrible, but I saw the light, right? And therefore, you know, I'm not completely to blame. I'm the good one. They're the bad ones. So, I mean, what do we think? How guilty is the system then? The system of empire, or that early system of capitalism, if that's what it was? How guilty is the system? What percentage guilt could be assigned to it?
Percentage guilt. I don't know.
So one I think might be this. What? You remember it? So part of it might be the whole system's guilty, but what does anybody else think? You're shaking your head yes? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, like, the system is, I think, because the system is producing these people. And so, like, at the top of it, that's the top of the system. So,
Okay. So 100% here, 100% here. It's okay. So 50-50 then, or?
Because the other people on trial are who? The King and Queen of Spain?
We have King Ferdinand, Queen Isabella. We have Columbus, obviously. Columbus's crew, the system of empire, and the Tianos are also on trial. Like, that lingering gringo.
Sorry,